After her underwear was stolen, my daughter insisted it was because so many people are infatuated with her. My name is Margaret Hayes. The first time I realized something was wrong was the morning I went to fold the laundry. A pair of my daughter's underwear was missing. At first, I thought I had simply misplaced it, or that it had been lost between the sheets swallowed by the washing machine. But as I looked again, carefully sorting through every piece, I knew it wasn't there. Trust me, you'll regret skipping this story. So before you sit back and listen, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to Grace's Truth. Now get in the mood to listen to this story because it might be the ultimate sweet revenge. I remember calling out to my daughter Emily, who was upstairs at the time. She was 17, brilliant in her own way, but lately insufferable, intoxicated with her own reflection in the mirror. Emily, I called. Did you take your laundry already? She appeared at the top of the stairs, hair half brushed, her expression impatient. Why, what now? Some things are missing, I said carefully. Your underwear, 1 or 2 pieces. Did you put them somewhere else? Her lips curved into a smile that sent a chill through me. Instead of looking concerned, she tilted her head like I'd just complimented her. Oh, she said, a strange little laugh escaping her. That's probably because people can't resist me. Someone must have stolen them. I froze. Her tone wasn't fearful or angry, it was smug. She wasn't thinking about the danger. She wasn't thinking about how violating and frightening it should have been. Instead, she basked in the idea that someone was infatuated with her. Emily, that's not funny, I snapped. This is serious. If someone took your things, that means they came close to this house. That means someone dangerous is watching you. But she only flipped her hair, leaning against the railing. Dangerous, please, Mom. It just proves what I already know. People are obsessed with me. Everyone wants me. Her arrogance cut deeper than I wanted to admit. At that moment, I saw not just a teenager, but a girl I was slowly losing, lost in a world where attention, even from strangers, equaled validation. The rest of the day, I couldn't shake the unease. I checked the windows twice, made sure the doors were locked. My mind kept circling. Was there really someone lurking outside? Or had Emily misplaced them? And this was just her way of turning everything into a story where she was the center of desire. That night, as I tried to sleep, I heard her on the phone in her room. Her laughter rang out, high-pitched and self-satisfied. She was telling someone, one of her friends maybe, about the theft. She spun it into a tale, painting herself as irresistible, boasting that men couldn't help themselves around her. It made my stomach churn. Where I saw danger, she saw triumph. Where I felt fear, she felt vanity. And that was when I realized this wasn't just about missing laundry. This was about something deeper. My daughter was so consumed with her own inflated image that she couldn't recognize a threat even when it was staring her in the face. The house felt smaller that night, the shadows heavier. I lay awake and thought, what happens when reality comes crashing into her illusions? Because I knew it would. The morning after the underwear incident, I expected Emily to wake up embarrassed, maybe even a little shaken. I thought she might realize the seriousness of what happened, that perhaps she would finally take my warnings to heart. But instead, she walked into the kitchen with a bounce in her step, her hair tied up in a sleek ponytail, humming like she had just won a prize. "Mom," she said brightly, pouring herself orange juice. "Guess what? Everyone's already talking about me." I looked up from the newspaper. "Talking about you," about what? She smirked. "The underwear thing. I told Jessica, and she told a few people, and now basically everyone knows. They're saying it's because guys just can't help themselves. Honestly, I'm not surprised. You always said I was pretty." I set the paper down. "Emily," I said sharply, "you told people about that. Something was stolen from our home. That's not gossip material, that's serious." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. Why do you always have to make everything sound like the end of the world? This is good news. It means people notice me. People want me." Her words sliced through me. Notice. Want. To her, those weren't warning signs. They were achievements. She saw herself as the heroine of a story where every man's gaze was proof of her power. The rest of the week, her behavior grew more unsettling. She didn't just keep the incident to herself, she broadcasted it. When my sister came to visit, Emily leaned in with exaggerated secrecy, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. "Aunt Claire, you won't believe it. Someone actually stole my underwear. I guess I've got a secret admirer." Claire's face paled. "Emily, that's not something to joke about. That's dangerous." But Emily laughed as if Claire were a gullible child. "Dangerous, number flattering, actually." "Don't worry, Aunt Claire. I can handle a little attention." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her shoulders and force her to understand. Instead, I bit my tongue because every time I pressed, she grew more defensive, accusing me of trying to ruin her fun, her image. That weekend, she upped the performance. We went to the neighborhood barbecue, a yearly tradition where everyone gathered in Mr. Jenkins's backyard, kids running around, neighbors swapping stories. Emily slipped into a short skirt and tight top, ignoring my protests. "Don't you think that's too revealing?" I asked quietly before we left. She smirked into the mirror. "Perfect for a girl everyone's obsessed with." At the barbecue, she made sure to bring up the theft at least a dozen times. "Oh, it's just so crazy," she told one group of neighbors, laughing dramatically. "Someone literally stole my underwear. I guess I should be flattered, men just can't resist." I saw the discomfort ripple across the faces of the women she spoke to. Some chuckled awkwardly, others looked away. The men looked uneasy, shifting from foot to foot. But Emily drank it in, mistaking their silence for awe. By the end of the night, I felt like crawling out of my own skin. Every whispered conversation, every sideways glance, it all fed into her self-made narrative. She believed she was the dazzling center of everyone's attention when in truth, most people were horrified. On the car ride home, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Do you even hear yourself, Emily?" I asked, gripping the steering wheel tighter than I realized. "You're bragging about something that should scare you. Do you know what it means that someone stole from you? That someone crossed into our private life? It's not romantic. It's sick. It's dangerous." She crossed her arms, staring out the window. "You're just jealous." The words hit me like a slap. "Jealous of what? Of me?" she said smoothly. "Your old mom. Nobody's obsessed with you. But me, I'm young. I'm wanted. And you hate it. That's why you're trying to twist everything into something ugly." I couldn't breathe for a moment. Jealous. That's what she thought of me? That all my warnings, all my fear, were just the bitterness of a woman past her prime. I pulled the car over abruptly, my hands shaking. "Emily, look at me." She reluctantly turned her head. Her face was set stubborn, her jaw tilted upward in defiance. "Do you think this is a game?" I said slowly, my voice breaking. "Do you think predators are men in love? Do you think theft is a compliment? Because it's not. One day you're going to wake up and realize the world doesn't adore you the way you think it does. And when that day comes, I pray you survive it." Her eyes flickered just for a second, a shadow of doubt. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Drama queen," she muttered, turning back to the window. The drive home was silent, thick with unspoken words. That night, I lay awake listening to the creaks of the house. My mind wouldn't stop replaying her words. "You're just jealous." Maybe I had failed her. Maybe in trying to protect her, I had somehow pushed her further into this fantasy world where danger equaled love and obsession equaled worth. The truth clawed at me. If she didn't learn soon, something far worse than embarrassment was going to wake her up. And I feared it would already be too late by then. The weeks that followed blurred into a slow torment. Emily's little performance, the vanity, the boasts, only grew louder. I'd hoped her classmates or relatives would quietly discourage her, that they would tell her to stop romanticizing something so disturbing. But the opposite seemed to happen. Teenagers thrive on drama, and Emily had just fed them a spectacle. Her so-called secret admirer became the talk of her school. I overheard her one night on the phone with a friend laughing breathlessly. Yeah, it's true. Someone literally risked breaking into our yard just to steal from me. Isn't that insane? I mean, imagine being that irresistible. She wasn't whispering. She wanted me to hear. At breakfast the next morning, she pushed her phone in front of me, showing me a thread of text messages from her friends. Emily's the hottest in the whole school. No wonder someone would do that for her. Guys are obsessed with her. I slid the phone back across the table without a word. Her eyes glittered. She took my silence as confirmation that she had won. But underneath my stillness was a growing dread. Because I had noticed something she hadn't. It started with little things: a man's shadow flickering near the hedges when I took the trash out after dark, the faint sound of gravel crunching when no car passed, cigarette butts tossed near our gate though none of us smoked. At first I convinced myself it was coincidence, but one afternoon as I came home from school with my grading bag, I saw him, a man standing across the street. His clothes were ragged, his hair greasy, his gaze fixed not on me, but on Emily's bedroom window. The second his eyes met mine, he turned and walked briskly away. My heart thundered. My palms slicked with sweat. That night I tried again to warn her. Emily, someone's been hanging around the house. I saw him today. I need you to understand this isn't about admiration. It's about someone dangerous. She snorted. And you think it's about me? Yes, I said firmly. Her eyes widened with satisfaction, not fear. So you admit it. Someone really is obsessed with me. I nearly lost my temper. Emily, do you want to end up hurt? Do you think obsession is love? Do you know what men like that do to girls? She leaned back in her chair, smug. Men like that worship girls like me. You wouldn't understand. That was the moment I felt something inside me shatter. My daughter, the girl I raised, had twisted danger into validation so deeply she could no longer separate the two. The tension at home thickened. I double-locked the doors shut. The blinds even considered calling the police. But what would I tell them? That my daughter believed she was irresistible, that a stranger was lurking without evidence. They'd dismiss me as paranoid. But the neighborhood began to notice. Mrs. Miller next door mentioned she'd seen a man loitering near our driveway. At first I thought he was just lost, she whispered. But he's been there more than once. When I told Emily, she actually smiled. See, even the neighbors can tell how much people want me. I slammed my hand on the counter. This isn't funny. She jumped startled, then narrowed her eyes. You know what, Mom? Maybe you want something to happen to me. Maybe you want me to get hurt so you can say, I told you so. The accusation sliced me open. Don't you dare say that, I hissed. Every lock I check, every night I stay awake, it's because I'm terrified for you. But you... I stopped myself, choking on the words. The silence that followed was heavier than anything we had ever shared. But fate didn't wait for her to learn slowly. It was a Thursday evening when it escalated. Emily had stayed out late with friends, and I was pacing the living room, praying she'd come home safe. The clock ticked past 10, then 11. My nerves stretched thin. Finally, around midnight, I heard the front door creak. She slipped inside, pale and trembling. Her usual cocky strut was gone. She shut the door quickly, locked it, and leaned against it as though catching her breath. Emily, I rushed to her. What happened? She shook her head, swallowing hard. It's nothing. But her hands were trembling. I pressed. Tell me. She finally whispered. There was a man. He followed me from the bus stop. Every time I looked back, he was there. When I crossed the street, he crossed. I ran the last 2 blocks. My blood ran cold. I pulled her into my arms, but she stiffened, refusing the comfort. It doesn't mean anything, she muttered quickly. It just proves. She stopped herself, biting her lip. Proves what I demanded. Her silence told me everything. She still wanted to spin it as validation, But for the first time, fear cracked through her pride. I sat her down at the kitchen table. Emily, listen to me. This isn't about love. This isn't admiration. It's predation. Do you understand predation? She stared at her hands, pale and shaken. But then she whispered, maybe he just likes me? The words broke me. She was still clinging to the illusion even after being hunted through the night. And that's when I knew if she didn't wake up soon, something catastrophic was going to happen. After that night, after she admitted the man had followed her, I hoped Emily would change. I thought the tremor in her voice, the pallor on her face meant she finally understood. But teenagers are masters at denial, and pride has a way of reshaping even fear into something convenient. The very next day, when I cautiously brought it up again, she brushed me off. You're exaggerating, she said, spooning cereal into her bowl. It's not like he did anything. He just followed me. Big deal. I slammed my coffee cup down harder than I intended. Big deal. Emily, men who follow girls don't stop at following. Do you understand me? They escalate. You were lucky to get home safely. She rolled her eyes, exhaling dramatically. You always talk like some TV crime show. I'm fine. Honestly, it just proves I'm right. People really are obsessed with me. I stared at her, almost unable to speak. How could she still twist it into vanity? By the weekend, she was retelling the story not as a close call, but as some sort of twisted romantic anecdote. To her friends, she giggled. This guy literally couldn't take his eyes off me. He followed me the whole way home. I guess I have that effect on people. Her friends laughed, half admiring, half nervous, and the sound echoed through the living room while I stood in the kitchen doorway, my hands shaking. She didn't just dismiss the danger, she performed it. I couldn't take it anymore. That night, after her friends left, I cornered her in the living room. Emily, enough. Do you hear me? You're glamorizing something that could kill you. This isn't admiration. It's a predator. Why can't you see that? She crossed her arms, chin lifted in defiance. Because you want me to be afraid. You want me to hide inside just like you. That's your life. Mom, locks and curtains and suspicion. But me? I'm not going to live like that. I'm not going to waste my youth worrying about every man who looks at me. I flinched at her words. I did live cautiously. I checked doors, avoided dark streets, trusted my instincts. And maybe she saw it as weakness. Maybe she thought my vigilance was envy, not love. Emily, I am not jealous of you, I said, my voice trembling with contained rage. I'm your mother. I see things you don't. I see the way men's eyes linger too long, the way danger hides behind charm. You think I'm trying to control you, but I'm trying to keep you alive. Her expression softened just for a second, but then she hardened again. You just don't get it. You've never been me. Everyone notices me. Everyone wants me. And you can't stand it. The words stung sharper than knives. She believed I envied her. That all my fear, my sleepless nights, my desperate warnings were rooted not in love, but in bitterness. I wanted to scream, but the weight of futility crushed me. Instead, I whispered, one day, you'll understand. And I pray. It's not the day something irreparable happens. She turned away, muttering drama queen, before heading upstairs. I sat in the darkened living room long after, my chest aching with helplessness. The following week, the escalation came. It was a Tuesday evening when I noticed more laundry missing from the line outside. Not just underwear this time, shirts, dresses, even one of her skirts. My stomach twisted into knots. When I told Emily, she laughed. See proof. I told you people can't resist me. Now they want my whole wardrobe. My hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Do you hear yourself? Do you know what this means? Someone's invading our home. They're trespassing. They're taking pieces of you. This isn't flattery, it's obsession. But she yanked her arm back, sneering. You make everything ugly. Can't you just admit I'm desirable, that men want me? You'll never understand. I had no words left. She was lost in her delusion, blind to the shadow closing in around her. That night, I barely slept. I sat near the window with the lights off, watching the street. At 1:30 a.m., I saw movement. A figure, lean, hunched, slipping near the fence, reaching toward the clothesline. My chest froze. Before I could move, the motion sensor light flicked on. The man bolted, vanishing into the night. I rushed outside barefoot, my heart hammering. On the ground lay one of Emily's blouses, half dragged from the line. I picked it up, trembling, fury and terror colliding inside me. The next morning, I confronted her again. But as always, she dismissed me. "Mom, seriously, you act like this is the end of the world. So what? Someone wants my clothes. It's not like they hurt me. It just means I'm special." I snapped. "You are not special because someone preys on you, Emily. You are not wanted. You are being violated. And the fact that you can't see it terrifies me more than the man himself." Her face turned stormy. "You're jealous. Admit it." That was the final straw. "Jealous," I shouted, my voice cracking. "Jealous of what? Of watching my daughter walk headfirst into danger because she thinks being stalked is a compliment, of listening to her twist her own humiliation into a crown of glory. If you think I envy you, Emily, then you've lost all grip on reality." She flinched, but then her expression twisted into a smirk as if my pain amused her. "You'll never get it," she said coldly. Then she walked away, leaving me shaking in the kitchen. That night, I wept quietly in my room. The chasm between us had widened so far I didn't know how to reach her anymore. She didn't see me as her mother, protector, or ally. She saw me as a bitter obstacle to her self-image. And the scariest part, somewhere deep inside, I knew the only thing that could shatter her delusion was reality itself. A reality I dreaded with every bone in my body. The turning point came on a damp Friday evening. The sky was swollen with clouds, the kind that press down on the neighborhood until the streets feel smaller, suffocated. I remember standing at the window watching rain smear the glass while Emily stormed out of the house, her heels clicking defiantly against the pavement. She was going to a friend's birthday party. I had begged her not to walk alone at night, especially after what had been happening. "I'll pick you up. I'll drop you off," I pleaded. But she waved me off, rolling her eyes. "Mom, stop being so dramatic. Nobody's going to hurt me. If anything, people will just stare because I look amazing." And with that, she slammed the door. Hours stretched like rubber bands, snapping my nerves tighter with every tick of the clock. I called her at 10, no answer. Again at 11, straight to voicemail. Midnight arrived and I was pacing the living room, my stomach in knots. Then finally, the lock turned. Emily stumbled inside, drenched from the rain, her hair clinging to her face. Her eyes were wide, darting as if every shadow still clung to her. "Emily," I rushed to her. "What happened?" She dropped her purse on the floor, her breath shallow. "He was there," she whispered. "Who?" "The man. I saw him. He followed me again. This time. This time he didn't just follow." I felt my blood run cold. "What do you mean?" Her hands trembled as she spoke. "I was leaving the bus stop. It was dark. And I could feel it, someone walking behind me. I told myself it was nothing. But then I heard his footsteps match mine. When I slowed down, he slowed. When I crossed the street, so did he." And then she swallowed hard. He called out. He said my name. My heart seized. "Your name." "How would he know your name?" Her face crumpled. "I don't know. I ran, but he ran too." I cut through Miller's yard and sprinted the whole way home. I didn't look back until I was inside. I pulled her close, but she resisted, trembling like a cornered animal. This was different from her earlier bravado. The mask had cracked. For the first time, real fear bled through. Yet even then, she clung to her delusion. Maybe he really likes me," she murmured, her voice fragile. I gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet my eyes. "No, Emily. This is not love. This is not admiration. This is obsession. This is sickness. And it's going to get worse if we don't stop it. She looked away, tears slipping down her cheeks. But she didn't argue. That alone told me her armor was finally splintering. The next morning, she wouldn't eat breakfast. She sat at the table, silent, staring at her untouched toast. Her usual defiance was gone, replaced with a hollow distance. "Emily," I said softly, "we need to go to the police." Her head snapped up. "No." "Why not?" "Because—" She hesitated, then whispered, "Everyone at school knows." I told them. "They all think it's because I'm special. If I go to the police, it'll ruin everything. They'll think I'm weak or pathetic." My chest ached. Even in fear, she was trapped by her own pride. She had built an identity out of this dangerous fantasy, and to admit the truth would mean tearing it down. "Emily," I said gently, "this isn't about pride, it's about safety. Do you want to keep running home in the rain terrified? Or do you want this to stop?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't answer. That weekend, she locked herself in her room more than usual. I heard the muffled buzz of her phone at all hours. I suspected she was still feeding the fire, messaging her friends, spinning the story into something that still made her the center of attention. But on Sunday evening, she emerged pale and hollow-eyed. She sank into the couch, pulling a blanket tight around her shoulders. "Mom," she whispered. "What if he finds a way inside?" I sat beside her, my heart aching at her sudden vulnerability. "That's why we have to act. We can't just pretend anymore." For once, she didn't argue. But fate wasn't done pushing her. On Monday night, she stayed late at the library studying with a group project. I insisted on picking her up, and though she protested at first, she eventually agreed. When I pulled into the dim parking lot, I saw her standing by the entrance, shifting nervously. She climbed into the car, quickly slamming the door shut. "Mom," she whispered, clutching her bag. He was there again, across the street, just staring. Rage boiled in my chest. Whoever this man was, he had crossed every line. And now my daughter was finally seeing the truth, the danger she had tried so desperately to twist into flattery. As I drove us home, the silence between us was heavy. She finally spoke, her voice small. "You were right." I glanced at her, startled. Her eyes filled with tears. "It's not because they like me, it's because I'm being hunted. And I don't know how to stop it." I reached over, squeezing her hand. "You don't have to stop it alone. We'll do it together. But you have to trust me now. No more pretending." For the first time in months, she nodded. No smirk, no roll of the eyes. Just a girl, terrified, finally beginning to see the world as it is. That night, as I lay awake listening to the wind against the windows, I realized something crucial. My daughter's illusions had kept her blind, but fear, real gut-deep fear, was finally beginning to wake her up. And though it broke my heart, I knew it was the only way forward. Because reality, no matter how brutal, was better than the dangerous dream she had been living in. For the next few days, Emily moved like a shadow of herself. She no longer strutted down the hallways of our home or tossed her hair in front of the mirror. Instead, she closed her curtains, kept her phone close, and jumped at sudden noises. A part of me was relieved finally she was waking up to reality. But another part of me ached, because fear had replaced the arrogance I once despised. I thought maybe she would finally listen. But fear can be a cruel companion. It twists the mind, latches onto blame, and searches for an outlet. And before long, her fear turned on me. It began one morning when she refused to eat breakfast. She sat at the table, silent, her cereal soggy in the bowl. I watched her from across the kitchen, choosing my words carefully. "Emily," I said softly, "I think it's time we go to the police. We can't just wait for him to strike again." Her spoon clattered against the bowl as she snapped her head up. "And tell them what? That my underwear got stolen, that some creep stares at me sometimes. They'll laugh at me." "No, they'll laugh at you." My chest tightened. This isn't about me. Yes, it is, she shouted, her voice sharp enough to make me flinch. You're the one who made this into a big drama. You're the one who keeps saying I'm in danger. Maybe if you hadn't cursed my life with your constant negativity, this wouldn't even be happening. Her words landed like blows. I sat frozen, unable to breathe. Emily, I whispered, you think I caused this? She stood, fists clenched. Everything bad that happens, you make it worse. You make me afraid. You twist things into something ugly. Maybe if you hadn't been so paranoid, none of this would have happened. I wanted to scream back, to shake her until she saw reason. But instead, I lowered my gaze. Because I realized she was trying to make sense of the senseless. Fear was eating her alive, and the easiest person to blame was me. The days that followed were unbearable. She started ignoring me in the house, slamming doors, locking herself in her room. When I knocked to check on her, she barked at me to go away. She stayed on her phone for hours, messaging friends, trying to reclaim some shred of her old confidence. But at night, I could hear her pacing, muttering under her breath. Sometimes she cried quietly when she thought I couldn't hear. One evening, as I sat grading papers at the dining table, she appeared suddenly in the doorway. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed red. "Why did you do this to me?" she asked, her voice flat. I set down my pen, confused. "Do what you made me believe something was wrong. You made me afraid." I swallowed hard. "Emily, someone followed you. Someone called your name in the dark. That isn't my imagination." Her voice cracked. "But maybe if you hadn't filled my head with all your fears, I wouldn't have noticed. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered. Maybe he wouldn't have chosen me." My throat tightened. The desperation in her words was raw, almost childlike. I stood slowly, crossing the room toward her. "Emily, predators don't choose because of mothers. They choose because they're broken. You didn't do anything wrong." But she shook her head violently, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No. You poisoned everything. You made me see danger everywhere. You made me weak." Her words shattered me. To her, I wasn't a protector. I was the villain in her story. Later that week, the rift between us widened even more. She came home from school looking furious, slamming her bag on the counter. "Everyone's laughing at me," she spat. I frowned. "Why? What happened?" She glared at me, her voice dripping venom. "Because of you. Because you've been telling people I'm in danger. Because you're making me sound pathetic." I blinked. "Emily, I've said nothing to anyone." "Liar," she shouted. "Someone told me you talked to Mrs. Miller about that man outside. Now everyone thinks I'm some fragile little victim. Do you know how humiliating that is?" I took a shaky breath. "I told Mrs. Miller because she saw him too. Because I wanted to protect you." "That's not humiliation, Emily, that's reality." She shoved past me, storming upstairs. From her room, I heard her scream, "I hate you." I sank to the floor, my hands trembling. Hate. My daughter hated me for trying to save her. That night, I sat in the darkness of the living room, staring at the front door. My thoughts churned. Should I call the police anyway? Should I install cameras? Should I force her to stay home until this ended? But she was 17. Half child, half adult. Too old to control, too young to understand. And deep down, I feared she would rather walk into danger than admit I had been right all along. The following weekend, the tension finally snapped. I found her sneaking out around midnight, slipping her shoes on quietly in the hallway. My heart lurched. "Where are you going?" I demanded. She jumped, then narrowed her eyes. "Out. Out? At midnight? Absolutely not. You don't control me," she shouted, her face flushed with rage. "I'm not your prisoner." I blocked the door. "Emily, you don't understand. That man is still out there. Do you want to walk straight into his arms?" She glared at me, her voice cold. "Maybe if I do, it'll prove once and for all that he wants me, not that I'm in danger." "You'll see." "You're wrong," I gasped. You would risk your life just to spite me. She smirked, though her eyes flickered with fear. Maybe I would. Because you've ruined everything. You've made me a joke. If something happens, it's on you. My voice broke. Emily, don't say that. Please. I'm begging you. But she shoved past me, slamming the door behind her. I stood frozen, my chest aching, listening to her footsteps vanish into the night. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window praying she'd come back safely. Hours crawled by. When I finally heard the door creak open at 3 a.m., relief flooded me so hard I nearly collapsed. She slipped inside, pale, trembling, her mascara smeared from crying. Without a word, she went upstairs and locked her door. I didn't follow. I just sat in the silence, my heart breaking, knowing the war between us was far from over. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, but the house felt darker than ever. I brewed coffee with trembling hands, waiting for Emily to appear. She finally came downstairs, her face pale, eyes shadowed from lack of sleep. For a moment, I thought she might finally admit defeat, might finally tell me she was ready to face the truth. But instead, she slid into a chair and said something that made my stomach twist. Mom, she began casually, more of my clothes are missing. I nearly dropped the coffee pot. What? My white blouse, that red skirt, and 2 tank tops. Gone. They were on the line last night, and now they're not. My heart pounded. Emily, this is serious. He's not stopping, he's escalating. We have to report this. But she didn't look scared. She actually smiled, brushing her hair back like a model on a runway. Don't you see? This just proves it. He doesn't just want pieces of me, he wants all of me. It's almost romantic if you think about it. My knees buckled. Romantic, I whispered. Emily, this man isn't writing love letters. He's trespassing, stealing, stalking you. That's not romance. It's violation. She shrugged. Depends how you see it. To me, it just shows how irresistible I am. He can't help himself. I slammed my hand against the table, startling her. Stop twisting this into a compliment. This isn't about your beauty, it's about danger. Every piece of clothing he takes is another piece of your safety disappearing. For the first time, her smirk faltered. But then she recovered, crossing her arms defiantly. You just don't get it. Maybe I like being admired. Maybe I like being wanted. I stared at her, horrified. She wasn't just blind, she was addicted. Addicted to attention, even the kind that threatened her life. The neighborhood began whispering. Mrs. Miller asked if I'd noticed anything strange. Mr. Jenkins mentioned seeing a man loitering near our yard again. Rumors spread like wildfire. And Emily. She thrived on it. At school, she became a spectacle. She strutted through the halls like a celebrity, letting her friends whisper behind cupped hands. She leaned into the story, exaggerating it, telling anyone who would listen that she had a secret admirer so obsessed he couldn't resist stealing from her. One evening, I overheard her on the phone laughing. I know, right? He took my skirt this time. I mean, who does that? He must be obsessed. Honestly, it's kind of flattering. I pressed my hand against the wall, fighting the urge to snatch the phone away. She was playing with fire, and she didn't even know it. But the fire was getting closer. One night around 2 a.m., I woke to a strange sound outside the faint creak of the back gate. My body stiffened. I crept to the window, peering into the shadows. There he was. A man hunched and quick, moving along the clothesline. The motion sensor light flicked on, catching his figure in harsh white. His face, gaunt, hollow-eyed, greasy hair hanging over his forehead, burned into my memory. And in his hand, clutched tightly, was Emily's skirt. My heart thundered as I rushed to the phone, but before I could dial, he darted away, vanishing into the night. I called the police, my voice shaking, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. They took a report, nodded sympathetically, and left with promises of extra patrols. Emily came downstairs groggy, rubbing her eyes. When I told her what happened, I expected fear. Instead, she gasped, her face lighting up. He risked everything for me. In the middle of the night, Mom. Don't you see how much that means? I nearly screamed. Emily. He's a criminal. He's stalking you. But she only sighed dreamily. Or maybe he's in love. The next day, I noticed something else, notes left under our gate. Scrawled handwriting, barely legible but filled with words that made my skin crawl. You're beautiful. I need you. You belong to me. When I showed Emily, her eyes sparkled. See, proof. Proof of obsession, not love, I cried. But she clutched the note to her chest like a bouquet of roses. The house became unbearable. I added extra locks, installed cheap cameras, even set up motion alarms. But Emily fought me at every turn. You're suffocating me, she complained. You're ruining the magic. What if he sees all this and thinks I don't want him? What if he stops? I snapped. You shouldn't want him. You should want him locked up. She glared at me, her eyes burning with resentment. You just want me to be ordinary, invisible. But I'm not. I'm special. And you hate it. Her words sliced deep, but worse than the insult was the truth beneath them. She didn't want him gone. She wanted the danger, the attention, the story. And that realization made me colder than anything else. The breaking point came when she paraded the stolen clothes to her friends. One Saturday afternoon, I came home to find a group of teenagers in our living room. Emily stood in the center, holding up the blouse that had been left half-dragged from the line like a trophy. This, she announced dramatically, is what he left me. Proof that he couldn't stay away. Proof that he needs me. Her friends giggled, some wide-eyed with awe, others visibly uncomfortable. But Emily drank it all in, glowing under their gaze. I stormed in, snatching the blouse from her hands. Enough. This isn't a game, Emily. You're feeding a predator's obsession and you're dragging your friends into it. The room went silent. Emily's cheeks flushed red, not with shame, but with fury. Why do you always ruin everything? She shouted. Why can't you just let me have this? You don't understand what it's like to be wanted, to be admired. You're jealous because no one looks at you like that anymore. Her friends gasped. My face burned, but I stood my ground. If admiration means living in fear, then I'd rather be invisible. Her eyes narrowed. Then maybe you already are. The cruelty in her tone stole my breath. Her friends left soon after, awkward and uneasy. Emily stormed upstairs, slamming her door so hard the frame rattled. I sat alone in the silence, clutching the stolen blouse, trembling. She was spiraling deeper, clinging harder to the fantasy. And I knew that unless something drastic happened, she would never wake up until it was too late. That night, as the wind rattled the windows and the house creaked under its own weight, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I realized something chilling. Emily wasn't just in denial. She was in love with her own danger, and no mother's warning could compete with the intoxicating thrill of being wanted even by a monster. The breaking point came not from me, not from the police, not even from Emily herself. It came from the eyes of someone who had been quietly watching, just as I had, our neighbor, Mrs. Miller. It was late on a Wednesday evening when the incident happened. I had gone to bed early, my nerves worn thin after yet another shouting match with Emily. She had accused me once again of killing the romance between her and her so-called admirer. I had gone upstairs exhausted, praying for just one night of silence. But silence didn't come. At 2 a.m, I woke to a pounding at the door. My heart raced as I threw on a robe and rushed downstairs. Through the window, I saw Mrs. Miller clutching her phone, her face pale and furious. When I opened the door, she nearly burst inside. Margaret, she hissed, call the police. Right now. He's in your yard. My blood froze. Who, that man? The one everyone's been whispering about. I caught him. He was crouched by your clothesline, stealing again. I shouted at him, and he ran. But I called 911 already. They're on their way. Before I could react, flashing red and blue lights filled the street. Emily, woken by the commotion, patted downstairs in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. What's going on? She asked groggily. But when she saw the police lights, her face lit up, not with fear, but with twisted excitement. Is it him? Did they catch him? I grabbed her arm. Emily, this isn't a fairy tale. This is real. This is dangerous. The police questioned Mrs. Miller first. She described the man gaunt mid-40s reeking of alcohol. She had seen him slipping into our yard clutching items of clothing. When she yelled, he dropped one and bolted. An officer handed me the evidence bag containing the blouse he had left behind. My hands shook as I stared at it. An ordinary piece of fabric turned into a symbol of terror. When they turned to Emily, she practically preened under their attention. So you see, officer, she said, tossing her hair back, men are always after me. I'm not surprised he couldn't resist. The officer frowned. Miss, this isn't about attraction. This man is a known offender in the area. He's been caught trespassing before. He's dangerous. The word offender hit me like ice water. I turned to Emily expecting her to finally break down, but instead she smirked as though the label only made her more irresistible. So he's obsessed with me, she said softly, almost dreamily. Emily, I snapped. Are you listening? He's not obsessed. He's deranged. He's a predator. And you're acting like it's some sort of prize. The officer cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Ma'am, we'll increase patrols in the area. But please keep your doors locked, your lights on. He's escalating. When they left, the silence in the house was suffocating. Emily sat at the table, twirling her hair, lost in thought. I slammed the evidence bag down in front of her. Look at this. This isn't love, Emily. This is theft. Violation. Do you still think you're special now? She glanced at it, then shrugged. Maybe I am. Why else would he keep coming back? My chest ached with fury and despair. Because you've been feeding it. Every time you laugh, every time you tell your friends, every time you romanticize him, you make yourself weaker. And you make him stronger. For the first time, her face faltered. A flicker of doubt crossed her eyes. But, she whispered, all my friends think it's because I'm irresistible. If I admit it's just some creep, then what does that make me? Her voice cracked and suddenly I understood. It wasn't just pride. It was desperation. She had built her entire identity on this fantasy. To tear it down now would mean admitting she wasn't the dazzling heroine she believed herself to be. She was just another girl being hunted. I reached across the table, gripping her hand. Emily, listen to me. Being safe doesn't make you ordinary. Protecting yourself doesn't make you weak. Do you know what does pretending this is love when it's not? That's weakness. That's giving him power. Tears welled in her eyes, but she yanked her hand away, retreating into silence. The next few days, the neighborhood buzzed with the news. People whispered, eyes darting toward our house. Some pitied Emily, others judged her. The very attention she once craved now turned heavy, suffocating. At school, whispers followed her. I overheard some of the crueler comments. She wanted it. She asked for it. She bragged about it. Remember, Emily came home furious, slamming doors, accusing me of ruining her life. This is your fault, she screamed one afternoon. If you hadn't made such a big deal, nobody would know. Now everyone thinks I'm pathetic. I stood there exhausted, my voice quiet. No, Emily. They think you're a victim. Because that's what you are. She spat the word back at me like poison. Victim. I'll never be that. But her trembling hands betrayed her. Then came the night that shattered her illusion once and for all. We were sitting in the living room when the sound came, a window rattling in the back of the house. My heart leapt into my throat. I grabbed Emily's wrist and pulled her behind me as I crept toward the kitchen. The sound came again. A faint scrape, then a thud. Someone was trying to pry the window open. I grabbed the phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. Emily clung to me, her face pale, her bravado gone. By the time the police arrived, the intruder was gone, but the evidence was clear: muddy footprints outside the window, the lock nearly broken. Emily sank into the couch, her entire body trembling. Her eyes darted to me wide and terrified. For the first time, there was no smirk, no arrogance, no dreamy smile, only fear. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. He really was going to come inside. I pulled her close, tears streaming down my face. "Yes, Emily. That's what I've been trying to tell you all along." She clung to me then, sobbing, her pride collapsing in my arms. And though it hurt to see her, broken part of me felt relief, because finally, she saw the truth. The night of the attempted break-in left a mark on our house that no amount of locks or alarms could erase. The police reassured us they would increase patrols, but their words felt empty, like a thin curtain against a raging storm. What truly changed wasn't the neighborhood's safety, it was Emily. For the first time, she was quiet. No smirks, no dramatic storytelling, no late-night phone calls to her friends painting herself as the irresistible heroine of some twisted romance. She moved through the house like a ghost, flinching at shadows, double-checking the locks after me. It was the silence of someone whose fantasy had finally shattered. But humiliation has a way of creeping in once the fear subsides. At school, the story spread faster than wildfire. Teenagers have no mercy. By the end of the week, everyone knew about the police, the break-in, the man lurking outside our home. What had once been her stage, a scandal she flaunted to claim admiration, had become her undoing. She came home one afternoon, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. Her face was blotchy, her eyes swollen from crying. "Emily," I began, but she cut me off. "Don't talk to me," she snapped. "Everyone's laughing at me. Do you know what they said today? They said I made it all up for attention. That I wanted it." My chest ached. "Emily, none of this is your fault. You didn't make him come after you." Her laugh was bitter, sharp as broken glass. "Didn't I?" I bragged. "I told everyone. I made it into some stupid story, and now they think I wanted it to happen. They think I deserved it." She collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her hands. For the first time, she looked less like a defiant teenager and more like a child, small and wounded. I sat across from her, my voice gentle. "Emily, predators don't need encouragement. They don't choose based on stories. They choose because they're broken. What you did was wrong, yes, but it doesn't make his actions your fault." She shook her head, sobbing. "You don't get it. I turned myself into a joke. Everyone remembers the way I bragged. Now all they see is how pathetic I really am." Her words pierced me. Because she was right, her pride had painted her into a corner, and now she couldn't escape the humiliation. That evening, she refused dinner. She sat in her room, the door cracked just enough for me to hear the muffled sound of her crying. It wasn't the haughty laughter of before, it was broken, gasping sobs that made my own heart splinter. I wanted to comfort her, but I also knew this was the reckoning she had to face. Pride had blinded her, and now reality had stripped her bare in front of everyone. The next day, Mrs. Miller stopped me at the fence while I collected the mail. "How's Emily holding up?" she asked gently. I sighed. "Not well. She's realizing now. But it's breaking her." Mrs. Miller's face softened with pity. "Sometimes that's the only way they learn. I just hope it doesn't leave scars too deep." I nodded, though inside I feared the scars were already etched into her soul. At dinner that night, Emily finally broke her silence. She poked at her food, then whispered, "Mom, do you think everyone hates me now?" The question gutted me. "No," I said firmly. "They don't hate you. They're just cruel in the way young people are. They don't know how to handle fear, so they turn it into gossip. But this doesn't define you." Her eyes filled with tears. "But it does. Because I made it into a performance. And now that the truth is out, I look pathetic. I look stupid." I reached across the table, taking her hand. "What you did was foolish, yes. But it doesn't make you worthless. Do you understand? You are not worthless." For a moment, she let me hold her hand. Then she pulled away, whispering, "I don't know who I am anymore." The days that followed were heavy with tension. She avoided her friends, silenced her phone, and retreated into herself. But the hardest moment came the following week at school, when a teacher overheard a group of boys mocking her. "She thinks she's so hot, but even creeps just want her dirty laundry," one of them sneered. Emily came home shaking her face pale. "They don't see me as desirable anymore. They see me as disgusting, as trash." Her voice cracked, and I gathered her into my arms despite her resistance. "Emily, listen to me. Their cruelty says more about them than you. Don't let their words define you." But I knew words couldn't erase humiliation. She had built herself on the illusion of admiration, and now she was forced to face the truth: the world wasn't in love with her. It was laughing. That night, as I lay awake, I thought about how fragile pride can be. It inflates like a balloon, bright and shining, but one prick, and it collapses into nothing. Emily's balloon had burst, and she was left gasping in the ruins. I also thought about myself, about the futility of all my warnings, the helplessness of watching my daughter walk into danger with her head high and her eyes closed. And I wondered, if humiliation didn't break her completely, what would she learn from it? Would she grow? Or would she resent me forever for being the mirror that showed her the cracks? That question gnawed at me as I looked at her fragile form curled in bed, tears drying on her cheeks. And deep down, I already knew the answer. Because humiliation doesn't always heal. Sometimes it festers. How do you think they will react when I reveal that to everyone after the break-in and the humiliation at school? I thought Emily and I might finally find common ground. That shared moment of terror had cracked her vanity. For one night, she had clung to me as if I were her anchor. But fear doesn't always bring people closer. Sometimes it sharpens old resentments, and that's what happened between us. The morning after the boys mocked her, she sat at the kitchen table staring into her untouched bowl of oatmeal. I set a cup of tea in front of her, hoping to ease her silence. She didn't look up. "You need to eat," I said gently. She finally raised her head, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. But instead of gratitude, her gaze was cold. "This is all your fault." I froze. "My fault?" "Yes." Her voice trembled, but her tone was sharp. "If you hadn't made such a big deal about everything, none of this would have happened. You called the police, you talked to the neighbors, you made me look weak. You ruined my life." I set the spoon down slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. "Emily, a man tried to break into our house. Do you think silence would have protected you?" Her lips twisted. "Maybe if you hadn't poisoned everything with your paranoia, I wouldn't have been humiliated. Maybe people would still respect me." My chest tightened. She was rewriting history to shield herself from the unbearable truth. "Pride dies hard even when shattered." "Emily," I said softly, "I didn't do this to you. The man did. The people who mocked you did. Don't turn your pain into a weapon against me." But she pushed her chair back violently, standing with her fists clenched. "You always ruin things. You couldn't let me enjoy being admired. You had to twist it, make it ugly. And now look where we are. You cursed me with your bitterness, and I'll never forgive you." Her words pierced me deeper than any knife. I wanted to shout back, but all I could do was whisper, "I cursed you with my love. That's all." She stormed upstairs, slamming her door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. The days that followed were unbearable. She withdrew further, barely speaking to me. When she did, it was only to lash out. At dinner, she muttered, "I hate this house. I hate this town. Everyone knows what happened. Everyone laughs at me. And it's because of you." I tried to reason with her. "Running away from the truth won't heal you." She glared. "No, but running away from you might." Those words left me awake all night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had already lost her. At school, the humiliation deepened. She overheard whispers, saw the smirks, endured the cruel jokes. Laundry girl, attention seeker. stalker's toy. Each insult drove her further into herself, and she carried the weight of them home like stones in her pockets. I watched her pace her room, muttering to herself, her phone abandoned on the desk. She wasn't bragging anymore. She wasn't boasting to her friends. She was alone, and isolation is a cruel teacher. One evening I tried again. I knocked softly on her door. "Emily, can I come in?" Silence. I opened the door anyway. She was sitting on the bed, knees pulled to her chest, staring blankly at the wall. "Sweetheart," I said gently, sitting on the edge of the bed, "I know this hurts. I know you feel humiliated. But blaming me won't change what happened. I want to help you." Her eyes flickered toward me, sharp and wounded. "Help me. You destroyed me." Tears filled my eyes. "I was trying to protect you." "Protect me," she scoffed bitterly. "You exposed me. You made me into a victim. Everyone sees me that way now, weak, pathetic, disgusting. I could have handled it my way, but you made sure the whole world knew I was just prey." Her words twisted like a knife in my chest. "Emily, I'd rather you be humiliated than dead." She froze, her eyes wide. For a moment I thought I had broken through. But then she whispered, venom lacing every syllable. "You'd rather I be humiliated so you can be right. Admit it. You wanted this. You wanted me to fall." I gasped. How could you think that? Her voice cracked. "Because you hate that I was admired. You hated that I was wanted. You've always hated me for that." The tears I had been holding back spilled over. "Emily, I don't hate you. I love you more than my own life. That's why I fight so hard. That's why I won't let you pretend this was ever admiration. Because love doesn't break windows. Love doesn't steal clothes. Love doesn't lurk in shadows." Her face crumpled, but instead of reaching for me, she buried her face in her knees. "Leave me alone." So I did. I walked out, closing the door gently behind me, my heart breaking into pieces. Weeks passed, and the distance between us grew like a canyon. She avoided me, skipped family dinners, stayed in her room. When she did emerge, it was only to hurl another accusation, another sharp dagger meant to wound me. One afternoon, she muttered as she passed me in the hallway, "I wish you weren't my mother." I sank against the wall after she disappeared upstairs, the words echoing in my ears. The rift between us was no longer just about the stalker. It was about pride, humiliation, and resentment. She couldn't forgive me for being right, and I couldn't forgive her for twisting my love into bitterness. Yet despite the pain, I knew one thing with certainty: the danger wasn't over. The man was still out there. The police had never caught him. And though Emily pretended to hate me, I stayed awake at night, guarding the door, ready to protect her even if she never forgave me. Because that's what mothers do. By the time October settled in, the air sharp with fallen leaves and shorter days, the distance between Emily and me felt like an unscalable wall. She barely spoke to me except to argue, and when she did, her words cut deeper than she probably realized. Yet even as she pushed me away, I knew I couldn't stop watching over her. The man was still out there, unseen, unpunished. One night, after grading essays late into the evening, I went to check on her before bed. Her door was cracked open just slightly, and through the sliver I could see the glow of her phone lighting her face. She was hunched over it, whispering into the screen with a softness that chilled me. Curiosity and dread twisted together in my stomach. I shouldn't pry, I told myself. She deserved privacy. But then I heard it. "You really think I'm beautiful?" My heart lurched. Silence followed on the other end, then her giggle, low, coy, a sound I hadn't heard from her in weeks. "Maybe I'll send you another picture tomorrow," she whispered. I pushed the door open. "Emily." She jumped, nearly dropping her phone. "Mom." "What the hell? Don't you knock." I stepped inside, my voice trembling. "Who are you talking to?" "No one," she said quickly, clutching the phone to her chest. "Don't lie to me." Her chin jutted forward, defensive. "Why do you always assume the worst? I was just chatting with a friend." I held out my hand. "Show me." She recoiled as if I'd struck her. No, you don't get to control everything I do. You've already ruined my life once. Stay out of it. But the way her fingers gripped that phone, the way her eyes darted nervously told me everything. Emily, I whispered, my throat tight. You've been talking to him, haven't you? The man who's been stalking you. Her silence confirmed it. The argument that followed tore through the house like a storm. How could you? I shouted. How could you give him more of yourself after everything he's done? After he tried to break into our home? She fired back, her voice shrill with desperation. Because he makes me feel wanted. Do you know what it's like to have someone see? You really see you? He doesn't laugh at me like everyone else. He doesn't treat me like I'm pathetic. My hands trembled. He doesn't see you, Emily. He consumes you. That's not love. It's hunger. He'll devour you if you let him. Her eyes glistened with tears, but she sneered to cover them. Maybe I'd rather be devoured than ignored. Those words knocked the breath out of me. My daughter was so desperate to be wanted that she'd rather fall into the jaws of a predator than face the loneliness of being ordinary. I tried again, softer this time. Emily, please. You're feeding his obsession. Every message, every photo, it makes him stronger. Don't you see you're giving him the very power he's been stealing from you? She shook her head violently. No, I'm taking control. If I choose to talk to him, then it's on my terms. For once, I get to decide. The twisted logic left me speechless. Control. She thought she was controlling him when in truth he had woven himself into her mind so deeply that she couldn't imagine letting go. For days I lived in terror. I couldn't sleep without imagining the words she was sending him, the images she might be sharing. I checked her room when she wasn't home, praying to find some proof, but she guarded that phone like it was her lifeline. I tried to reason with her again one evening, sitting on the edge of her bed. Emily, one day he will demand more. He won't be satisfied with messages. He'll want to see you, touch you. And when that day comes, what will you do? She looked away, her silence louder than any answer. I pressed. Will you still call it romance then? Will you still think it's admiration when he has you cornered? Her lips quivered. For a fleeting moment I saw fear in her eyes. But then she hardened again, clutching her pillow. At least he wants me. You don't understand what it's like to feel invisible. My heart cracked open. She wasn't just arrogant, she was terrified of fading away, of not being special. And this man, this monster, had preyed on that fear perfectly. One night I woke to a noise, her voice whispering again into the phone. I stood outside her door, my hand trembling against the wood. Do you really mean it? She murmured. That you'd do anything to have me? I closed my eyes, bile rising in my throat. She was falling deeper, and I didn't know how to pull her back. The next morning, I confronted her one last time. Emily, I said firmly, if you keep this up, I'll take your phone away. I'll lock it in a drawer if I have to. Her eyes widened with betrayal. You wouldn't dare. I would, I said, my voice shaking. Because I'd rather have you hate me forever than see you destroyed by him. She glared at me, her face pale with rage. You want me to be invisible? You've always wanted that. Well, guess what? I'd rather risk everything than live like you, afraid, bitter, unloved. Her words sliced into me, but I stood my ground. I don't live in fear, Emily. I live in reality. And if you don't start doing the same, reality will crush you. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the silent phone in my hands, the house line, not hers. I considered calling the police again, telling them everything. But what could I say? That my daughter was secretly feeding her stalker's obsession without proof, they'd dismiss me. So I sat in the silence, feeling the weight of helplessness press down on me. Because no matter how much I warned her, no matter how much I begged, I knew the truth. She was already tangled in his web. By the time November came, I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle outside the window set my nerves on edge. But what weighed on me most wasn't the man lurking in the shadows. It was Emily who was now carrying him in her pocket, his words glowing on her phone screen at all hours of the night. I had tried everything, pleading, threats, tears. Nothing worked. She clung to those conversations as though they were proof of her worth. She no longer boasted to her friends her pride had been too badly burned by the humiliation, but in private she still fed the fantasy. To her, the messages were a secret sanctuary where she was admired, wanted, adored. I couldn't watch it anymore. So one evening, when she left her phone unattended on the kitchen counter to grab a sweater upstairs, I made a decision I knew she'd never forgive me for. I unlocked it. The messages made my blood run cold. They weren't romantic. They weren't sweet. They were possessive, disturbing, dripping with obsession. I dream about you every night. You're mine. No one else can touch you. If you ever stop talking to me, I'll come and take you myself. Each word felt like a knife against my skin. My hands shook as I scrolled further, and then I saw the photos, grainy shots of our house, our yard, even the window to Emily's room. He had sent them to her. Proof that he was watching. Proof that he was close. And her replies. God, her replies broke me. You really think I'm that beautiful? Maybe one day I'll meet you, but not yet. Don't stop wanting me. I slammed the phone shut, bile rising in my throat. This wasn't harmless vanity anymore. This was a noose tightening around her neck. When she came back downstairs, I was waiting. The phone trembled in my hand. Emily. I said, my voice low but trembling with fury. We need to talk. Her eyes narrowed instantly. You went through my phone, didn't you? Yes. My voice cracked, but I didn't back down, and I saw everything. Her face flushed red, her fists clenching at her sides. How dare you? You had no right. No right, I shouted, the words bursting out of me. No right to protect you from a man who is threatening to break into our house and take you. No right to save your life. She flinched, but then her pride reared its head again. You don't understand. He loves me. He's the only one who's ever really loved me. I slammed the phone onto the table, the screen lighting up with his sick words. Love. You call this love? You're mine. I'll come and take you myself. Does that sound like love to you? Does love terrify you into hiding in your room at night? Does love break windows and steal from you? Her face paled, but she refused to answer. I pressed harder. You've been living in a fantasy, Emily. You turned a predator into a prince. And now you're so tangled in the lie you can't even tell the difference. But look at these words. Look at them. This isn't admiration. This is ownership. This is obsession. And one day he won't settle for messages anymore. Tears welled in her eyes, but she shook her head violently. You're twisting it. You've always twisted everything. You hate that he wants me. You hate that I'm not invisible like you. Her words stabbed deep, but I didn't let them silence me. No, I said fiercely. I hate that my daughter is blind. I hate that you'd rather cling to vanity than face the truth. You think being wanted makes you powerful, but it doesn't. It makes you prey. And you're serving yourself to him on a silver platter. She sank into a chair, trembling, her tears spilling freely now. He said he'd never leave me, that he needs me. My chest ached. I crouched in front of her, taking her hands despite her resistance. Needing someone isn't love. It's chains. Real love doesn't stalk you. Real love doesn't threaten you. Real love doesn't steal from you in the night. Her lips quivered. But if I let go of this, then who am I, without his words, without his obsession? I'm nothing. I shook my head, tears streaming down my own cheeks. No, Emily. You're everything. You're my daughter. You're flesh and blood. You don't need to be a fantasy to be valuable. But if you keep chasing this lie, it will kill you. For a long moment, the only sound was her sobs. Then she whispered, broken, I thought it made me special. I thought if someone wanted me that badly, it meant I mattered. My heart shattered. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight. You matter because you're you, not because of some twisted man's obsession. You matter because you're mine. She clung to me then, finally truly clung to me, her pride crumbling in the face of reality. I'm scared, she whispered into my shoulder. I know, I said softly, stroking her hair. But now we face it together. The next morning, I made her sit with me as I called the police again. This time, I showed them the messages, the photos, the threats. Their faces hardened, their tone changed. Now it wasn't just suspicion, it was evidence. They promised to investigate, to track him down. For the first time, I saw Emily's mask slip entirely. She sat pale and silent, her hands twisting in her lap. When the officers left, she turned to me, her voice fragile. Mom, do you think everyone will know about the messages? I met her gaze firmly. Maybe. But better they know you were tricked than they find your face on the news. You can survive humiliation, Emily. You can't survive him. She nodded, silent tears falling. That night, as we sat together on the couch, I felt a shift. For months, she had been my enemy, mocking, accusing, dismissing. But now, in the dim glow of the lamp, she leaned against me like she used to when she was little, fragile, and small. And I realized that sometimes love isn't about being gentle. Sometimes it's about ripping the fantasy apart no matter how much it hurts, so the truth can finally breathe. The house was quieter after the police got involved, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that lingers after a storm, heavy and uncertain. Emily stayed closer to me now. She kept her curtains drawn, her phone off most evenings, and, for the first time in months, she didn't argue when I insisted on walking her to the bus stop. It wasn't victory. It was survival. When the police confirmed that they had identified the man, an ex-con with a history of stalking and harassment, I thought I would feel relief. And in some ways I did. But alongside relief came grief. Grief for the months spent battling my daughter's vanity. Grief for the innocence she had twisted into arrogance. Grief for the trust between us that had been fractured, perhaps beyond repair. One evening, I found Emily sitting at the kitchen table with an empty notebook in front of her. She had been staring at the page for so long the lamp cast a yellow halo around her, frozen in place. "What are you working on?" I asked gently. She shrugged. "Nothing. I just thought maybe if I wrote it all down it would make sense. But it doesn't." I sat across from her. Some things never do. Her eyes lifted to mine, and for the first time in weeks, there was no defiance, only weariness. "Mom, why did I want it so badly? Why did I need everyone to think I was irresistible, even when it was dangerous? Even when it hurt, I couldn't let it go." I swallowed, my heart aching. Because pride is a powerful drug. It tells you that being admired makes you stronger, more valuable. But pride doesn't protect you. It blinds you. And when you're blind, you can't see who's really reaching for you, a friend or a predator. She bit her lip, her eyes filling. "I feel so stupid." I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "You weren't stupid. You were human. You wanted to feel seen. We all do. But you let the wrong eyes define your worth." Her shoulders shook as tears slipped down her cheeks. "I hurt you, didn't I? All those things I said. That you were jealous. That you ruined everything. I didn't mean it." My own tears came then unbidden. "You meant it in the moment. And it cut deep. But I always knew it wasn't really me you were fighting. It was yourself. Your fear. Your pride." She let out a broken laugh. "You were right, Mom. About everything. And I hated you for it." I stroked her hair like I used to when she was little. Sometimes being right is the loneliest thing in the world. The following week, the police called to say they had arrested the man. They had traced the phone he used to message Emily and found him living in a decrepit motel on the edge of town. He had a bag of women's clothing with him, items stolen not just from us but from other girls in the neighborhood. When I told Emily, she went pale. So it wasn't just me, I shook my head. No, it was never about you. It was about his sickness. She sat back, the weight of it pressing down on her. I thought I was special. But I was just another girl he targeted. Her voice broke and my heart cracked again. I cupped her face in my hands. Emily, you are special, but not because of him. Not because of anyone else's obsession. You're special because you're mine. Because of who you are, not because of what people want from you. For once, she didn't argue. She simply leaned into my hands, her tears soaking my palms. Life didn't return to normal overnight. The damage lingered in ways both seen and unseen. Emily struggled at school, her once bright confidence dimmed. She kept her head down, avoided gossip, and some days came home in tears when the whispers became too much. But slowly she began to rebuild. Not with vanity, not with fantasy, but with something quieter, real. She started spending more time with books again, curled up on the couch, with novels instead of her phone. She helped me with dinner sometimes, silently chopping vegetables, the sound of the knife steady and grounding. On rare evenings, we even laughed together, soft, fragile laughter, but laughter nonetheless. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was real. One night, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emily turned to me. Her face was bathed in orange light, softer than I had seen it in months. "Mom," she said quietly, "thank you for not giving up on me, even when I hated you, even when I said terrible things." I smiled faintly, my chest tightening with emotion. That's what mothers do. We don't give up, even when it hurts. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a fragile kind of peace. Looking back now, I realize the hardest part wasn't the man outside our window. It wasn't the stolen clothes or the notes or the broken locks. The hardest part was watching my daughter lose herself to a fantasy and knowing I couldn't drag her out until she was ready to see the truth. Pride had blinded her. Vanity had consumed her. And it nearly destroyed us both. But in the end, reality broke through. Painfully, brutally, but it broke through. And maybe that's the lesson in all of this. Admiration, obsession, fantasy, they fade. They shatter. But love, no matter how strained, remains, even when it's misunderstood, even when it's hated, even when it's rejected. Love stays. Because love is the only thing strong enough to wait for the truth. Slow fade out, 200, 300 words with CTA. So this is where our story ends. Not with triumph, not with revenge, but with a mother and daughter learning how to see each other again after walking through the shadows of vanity and fear. I can't say Emily and I became perfect after this. There are still scars, things we both said that we can't take back, moments that still sting when remembered. But we survived. And sometimes survival itself is a kind of victory. If there's anything I've learned, it's this: danger doesn't always arrive wearing a mask of malice. Sometimes it comes dressed as admiration, as flattery, as attention. And if you're not careful, you can mistake the hand reaching to take from you as a hand reaching to love you. But love doesn't steal. Love doesn't threaten. Love doesn't hide in shadows. Love stands in the light. And sometimes love is the only thing stubborn enough to pull someone back when they're too blind to see. Have you ever faced something like this, where someone you loved was blinded by their own pride or vanity? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments. And if this story touched you, subscribe to Grace's Truth for more stories like this. Stories about family betrayal, survival, and the painful truths we sometimes have to face. Because the truth, no matter how bitter, always deserves to be told.